This is a Divorce Curious podcast. I'm your host, Lisa Mitchell. If you're here, your life and marriage might kind of suck right now, and I've been exactly where you are. At Divorce Curious, we're going to say the quiet parts out loud. We're going to sit in the anger, confusion, and disappointment that you're feeling and talk about what it looks like to go through the before, during, and after of being divorce curious. I'm glad you're here. Welcome to the Divorce Curious Show. I'm your host, Lisa, but we don't care about that. We want to get to the cool one in the room. And that today is my friend, my inspiration. She literally has been in my phone. The title in my phone when Kara calls me from the very first time I met her is Badass Endurer of All Things. And I will never change it because it has been proven true over and over and over again. And my guest, Kara Kavensky, just again, badass endurer of all things. She's many, many things to many, many people and has an incredible story and tons of talents. And she's getting a book published, breaking the news here. So congratulations on that. But beyond all of her amazing professional and creative accomplishments is just an incredibly heart-centered, empathetic encourager that I feel so lucky to have in my life. And Kara, thank you so much for joining us today on the Divorce Curious Show.
I'm kind of speechless, so thank you very much for that intro. I did not know that that's how you had me saved in your phone. I want a screenshot of that.
Oh, like for real. Every time you call me, it pops up with your picture, which I love. It's your black leaning forward in the chair picture, and it's badass endurer of all things. Like just your picture has changed and updated over time, but there's no other way to describe her. It's just a perfect fit.
Thanks for having me on this podcast. I'm really grateful for you, and likewise with all the kudos and compliments to you. And I'm excited about this venture for you. So my ground zero, I would say my awakening moment, when I was married, I was pregnant with my third child, and I was just hit by a 5-alarm fire. And I was in the middle of a kind of a standard-ish argument. This one was a little different. I was being yelled at for the first time. And it just hit me that I was in a very abusive, narcissistic relationship. And that describes the other party that I eventually successfully divorced. But being pregnant with kid number 3, that could not happen soon because I breastfed all my kids for 2.5 years. I had a home birth with my second. I could not possibly conceptualize sharing this child with another party, which would have been his family, and that was out of the question. So I got through that through furtive therapy and so many different energy modalities and things that helped me cope and heal, take the edge off, and help me get to the exit in which I wanted to run, with my hair on fire through as soon as I realized what I was dealing with. And then because of my children, I needed to wait. So just that whole process was just gut-wrenching and difficult. And when you grow up with red flags, it feels like home. So I was not aware consciously that what I was dealing with. I knew I didn't like him. I knew some other things, but I was also the child of divorce and didn't want to experience that again. So my concern, my first thought was, I have to go through that again. So what are the lessons I need to learn to get there? And what are the lessons I need to learn so I do not ever repeat this pattern of behavior? And then through years later, I finally was able to get divorced when my youngest was 10. I started the process when he was about 7. And there was a very, very low moment. And I'm not naturally a depressive person. I was in a very, very dark place, but I was not diagnosed with depression. And had I been, diagnosed, that would have further compounded the stress I was under because the then spouse would have not understood and would have capitalized on that and made it much, 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 much worse. And I probably would have ended up in prison because of things that I shouldn't say. So I've been a writer for most of my life. That writing has taken on different iterations from a sales and marketing standpoint, a expert on corporate communications and corporate storytelling.
We met through your writing.
That's right. That's right. I wrote a piece on you.
I'll never forget it. You called me. You were making a return at like Nordstrom or something while you were doing my interview. And I was like, what is happening? Who is this woman? How is she going to remember anything? And little did I know that your all things photographic sensory memory would just make a beautiful, detailed article at the end of the chaos.
Yeah, with receipts in hand, walking back out to my car.
I know. I was like, what is happening? Who is this woman? I need to know her because she is as chaotic as I am. I found a sister. Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt, but that story is like one of my favorite introductions to your writing talents. I was on the receiving end of it and I'm astounded.
Thank you for reminding me about that. And right around the time when Jake was 7.5, I was just very low. And not because he was 7.5, but it was just the timing.
That'll test it.
Well, and my daughter was being recruited by schools, academics, athletics. She was a soccer player, ended up playing at Indiana University and ended up being dual sport, actually. So it was just a lot happening. And initially I thought I need to stick with this very unfortunate, should not be married situation until Jake was old enough to lock doors, turn off lights, be responsible for just general safety at home because of my lack of trust in anything remotely close to supervising the children for the person I was divorcing. And then my concern turned to my daughter because of the high intensity level at which she was competing, not just in academics and sports. And it was a lot. So I couldn't file.
You didn't want to pile on because that's what moms do, right? They put their kids first.
Yeah, I couldn't. Right in that time frame, it was actually the next day after a certain incident happened, I interviewed a World War II vet named Bob. And it was a lovely interview. I had never met an old man who was that happy, to be honest. Most of them, if you have a health problem, it's hard for you to be chipper, right? Like you're in pain, you're uncomfortable. And Bob was just this Zen, Mr. Rogers, darling man, funny. He said, when you get to be my age, everyone thinks you're senile. I say mess with people. And he did mess with people. It was amazing. It was so fun to watch. So I asked him if I could come back the following week and read him my rough draft, which was something I never did before. I interview you, you answer my questions. Thank you very much. You'll see it in print and I'll get back to you if I have any clarifications. And that's it, typically. And, these thousands of interviews I've done. But this one was different. And I could not believe I said, may I come back next week and read you my rough draft? Like I just really wanted to see this man again. I was just drawn to him. And so I go back the following week and he says, I missed out on marrying the love of my life. I don't know if she's dead or alive or where she is, but I need to find her and ask her for forgiveness. So that is a mic drop moment. And I found myself saying to him, what did you do? And he said, I never asked her to marry me. And that was the first time he had spoken of her, this woman named Joy, in 67 years. His kids didn't know about her. It was just a broad-sided, blindsided moment and one of the most magical moments of my life. And I sought out this woman who I was successful in finding and reuniting this couple. And this happened in the absolute most desperate time of my life where I'm treading water, just crawling towards the exit door of my marriage and had not had a beautiful example of what love was in my life. Case in point, who I married. So Bob and Joy became that example. And so I truly believe that there's nothing more powerful than possibility and the example set by others that you look to and that you are inspired by. And Bob, with his trust in me to help him close out a charmed life with one final glorious chapter, was absolute magic. It was a miracle. I knew I needed to write the story. I had to get divorced first. There's no writing if you can't have a safe space.
I want to ask you, because it's, to me, what strikes me in this part of your story is, and I knew you in this part of your story, so it was an interesting time to kind of see things navigate from the outside. But how did that hope, and I mean, it's a pretty courageous thing that Bob and Joy did, right? You think about the amount of courage it takes, A, to say that stuff out loud, and B, to enlist the help of damn near an FBI agent to, you know, what's going to happen next. It's going to happen. You're going to get your answers. You're going to get, you know, possibly the opportunity to redeem. How did you help through the process of helping them navigate that reunion? Like, how did that give you courage? How did that embolden you? Or what was the impact of that on helping you make your next steps to do the hard part of pursuing? In sharp contrast to the reunion, right? You're getting out of something that's equally, if not more complex and nuanced than what they're doing. How did that kind of correlate, or was there a relationship between the victories you were seeing through that and the challenges you were having in your own house?
Well, they were certainly adversely proportional. So their example of hope and what's possible and just the audacity of love and Joy's ability to forgive, you know, he dumped her. But in this process, they were the beacon and my guidepost that I could get through this. I can survive this. And there is magic out there. And speaking of magic, during this time frame, I read the entire Harry Potter series, I think 7 or 8 times, especially the last book, dozens of times, just to keep believing in magic. Anything I could do to have something to cling to, because I just felt like my light was just flickering out. And Bob and Joy are just a miracle in my life. And I'm so tremendously grateful for them. So it was just incredible to have them at this time. And they were my lifeboat.
The term I use for things like that is collecting evidence, right? Collecting the positive evidence of this is something that exists. This is a real thing. There are other people living in this reality. And there's not an exception for me. Like, this is something I'm seeing the evidence with my own 2 eyes from a scientific lens, right? Give me all the data, give me all the evidence. And it is possible. And it's not exceptional, like as if I'm excluded from the possibility of also having this thing that I desire in my life. And so I'm so glad that you had Bob and Joy. Oh my gosh. I love it. I love it. I am so thankful as your friend that you had the experience with Bob and Joy, and that you got to play a role in helping to create that opportunity and that reconciliation of love, and that they got to enjoy a portion of their life story together as they always had hoped they would. And that you were able to draw strength and hope and collect the positive evidence of what was possible for you. And I think really for anybody listening to this that is in that, I have to do something and I feel like I can't, like that is the most disempowered, gut-wrenching, heartbreaking just space to have to get up and live in every day. So for you to be able to find the courage and be emboldened by witnessing the love, the complicated and long delayed love story of Bob and Joy, and to believe enough that that was possible for you, that you could be brave enough to go do it. That's a tremendous act of courage. And I know like you're one of the most courageous people I know for so many reasons, but I think watching you navigate that, and Bob was a war veteran, and I feel like there should be some medal for you for the battle that I mean, honestly, it wasn't a battle, it was a war. So kudos to you for maintaining the courage to give yourself the opportunity to have something different. A lot of people give up or settle or feel like they can't. And you are that beacon, I think, right now for people who feel like they can't or like that's not for them or not available to them. So thank you for letting people borrow your courage to believe it's possible for them too.
Thank you for that. I was motivated to include my story versus just about this couple in order to help others. And I had no intention of including my story. I thought it was more like Tuesdays at Maury, and I showed up and witnessed this just miracle in front of me of these nonagenarians. And it didn't make sense for me not to. It did take some convincing through another friend of mine to say, hey, where's your story? And there's no Bob and Joy without you, so you should be in this. And that part was terrifying, but I've figured out a balance with it, I hope. My goal with the book is to help as many people as possible understand and experience a story vicariously on the page of love, even after, and that it's never too late for love, and belief in miracles. Bob and Joy, they've both since passed, are still very present for me. And I love them dearly and have so much gratitude for them. And it's been incredible. And we'll see how the book is received. I have hopes that will touch others. When I share the story of Bob and Joy and reuniting them, I realized very quickly I needed to carry tissue with me at all times, which is a positive response when someone gets teary, and maybe they're the ages of someone's parents or someone's grandparents, and they don't even need that type of connection. It's just this beautiful connection in general, I think, just of love and possibility. And Bob had a regret that he had not married her. I do believe that they lived the lives that they were supposed to live and came together in this beautiful way at the end of their lives. And it's just astounding to me that I was involved in it in some small way. I'm very grateful for that.
Well, and it's interesting to me when I hear you talk about their story is because, again, as your friend and as someone who has been kind of on the ride to varying degrees throughout a lot of your knowing you need to get out, doing the getting out, right? All of the fallout and our experiences of getting to the out piece of it and the first phases of the out piece, right? Like I always joke that a contentious divorce is the gift that keeps on giving, right? Because it's people, there's not the clean finality line of demarcation. It is an ongoing and ever-present process of negotiation, especially if you have kids, and it can be exhausting. It can be scary. It can be tremendously sad. And I think one of the things I have loved for you and those of you along for the ride with us today, like there's no outline. We didn't talk about where we were going to go with this. So, but I feel like for me to witness you get your, I want to say Bob and Joy connection, your redeeming love story, and you manifesting a relationship that's beautiful and loving and positive and healthy, and seeing you in that relationship now versus being on the ride with you on the exit ramp for what you had before is just, as a friend, it's like my greatest hope and greatest joy for you is to see you now, right? And to see you get to like be rewarded with and nourished by that aspirational love story playing out. Goddamn girl, like you deserve it. Like you deserve it.
You're goddamn right, I do.
I know you do.
I've been through fucking hell, and I deserve every ounce of Adam, I can tell you.
You do. Yes, you do.
And I did the work, and I worked my ass off to get healthy. So a couple things. One, divorce is hard. If you're unhappy, get a good lawyer. Find the scariest one that you don't want to ever have to deal with and hire them. Get a good therapist. Get somebody who does energy work. And not get into another relationship for a long time, long enough that you heal, you get into a space where You are whole enough to keep healing alongside someone, but don't jump vine to vine because you will just repeat patterns and then fall into some sort of victim-y bullshit thing. But do the work. And it's not easy at all. And the work is hard. The PTSD from being in a relationship with a narcissistic, emotionally abusive person is terrible. And you end up saying all the things in these triggering moments where you say outrageously inappropriate things when you are triggered. And it is so important to be in a safe space or create that safe space for yourself and heal. And a lot of people aren't willing to do it, period. And they don't want to talk about the tough stuff. And it's hard for me to talk about the weather with someone. I'm not a shallow end of the pool person. I'm not. And it's really difficult, but do the work. Or, you know what? If you end up in another relationship, well, guess what? That you're unhappy with or similarities and so forth. So it's really important to get help, but also having some sort of guidepost, right? Like this loving example. I had Bob and Joy as the first example of unconditional love, safe space in my life. And I did not have that before. And just being around them, it was just amazing. And so then I knew, okay, whatever my marriage was nothing I wanted. Nothing. My kids, I wanted them. That was it. And then when I went through all of this healing, did all of this work, and when I met Adam, we both knew the moment we met, and he is everything I've always wanted and nothing I've ever experienced before. And I just was not willing to compromise on any of it, especially when you go through something so terrible. I'm like, I'm not repeating that. I had hard stops on my filters of stuff, and not saying I didn't make mistakes and blundering along the way, but I certainly chose well. And I didn't want a good guy. I wanted a great man.
Oh, yeah. We don't need good guys. We need great men. It always strikes me. I know how much work you've done. I know the time between getting out and what your experience with Adam and how much confronting all the deep, dark spaces and using all the different tools and modalities and support that you could to do it differently. And I just laugh in contrast because, when I was back on dating apps back in the day, I would run across the profile of your ex, knowing what I know about him, and then seeing how he advertised himself. And it was the most aspirational profile of who he was selling himself to be versus who I have seen him operate to be, right? To your point, take the time to heal, or you repeat. For people who are perpetrators of this, the narcissist, and there is no downtime. They need to immediately find someone else that they can benefit from being able to control and abuse and gaslight and denigrate and all the things that they love to do. So the end game is not resolution or healing for them. It's like, who's my next? Again, there's enough stories of kind of aftermath of one path of healing, deciding different, doing the work versus just finding someone else to let you rinse and repeat, copy paste all your bullshit on over and over and over again, to how many additional victims and piles of destruction are there in the path of that person. And I think it's just, again, a testament to like the intention, the willingness to do the work, knowing what you want, like you said, right? Like you knew the great man that you were looking for. You knew the qualities that person would do and the safety that they would provide for you. And there was not a tolerance. You were very quick to filter out like, nope, not it. Nope, not it. Nope, not it. Right. And we were both dating in that time. And I was like, damn, she's like so good at like, just not for me. Misalignment. See you later. Thank you. Bye. Right. I was like, oh man, I'm still like bored and I'm with them, but it's okay. And it's not okay. And you're like, oh my God, just be done. Right.
And I don't have the online dating experience. I didn't do that.
Oh, be glad. You miss nothing. I promise you.
It just seemed like shopping to me.
Oh, shopping is way better. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think that everyone should be with someone who meets or exceeds their capacity for love, and someone that is so there and so present and just thinks the world of you. So find that reflection in someone, but you really need to heal first. And that is a really tough road and definitely not easy. But I'm very supportive and encouraging and hoping for all the best for everyone going through this difficult process. And I love that you interviewed Kirsten and doing the kids are all right.
My daughter is amazing, isn't she?
Yes. Yes, she is. And I think that kids are all right. They know what's going on. And I think that there's a lot to be said for providing a loving relationship, an example of a loving relationship, even if that's self-love, like self-love and making that decision. That's huge. And it's showing the best example of someone and those boundaries, which are really, really important.
Yeah. And I think one of the questions that spurred me to action, and you had the answer to the question, I think, in your situation. Mine was a little more subtle, but it was, is this a marriage that I would be happy to see my daughter in? Would I feel good about her being in the relationship I am in right now? And, my daughter was 3 when I made my decision, and I couldn't in good conscience justify that. So that was really the catalyst of finding the courage and knowing, even with the tough road ahead, that it was the absolute right decision. And never for a moment have I hesitated to believe that that's the fact, because of that was my test. And I think we're very similar in what we hope for our kids and the example we strive to be for our kids, sometimes even in stark contrast to other examples that they have. And I think if you're listening to this or you're watching this and you have children, or you're staying for the kids, or that's been your reason not to maybe more thoughtfully consider going through the tough phases it's going to take and the changes in your life it's going to take and the fallout you might experience. If you're staying for the kids, just sit on that for a minute. Like, if you were watching this as the parent of your child and this was the relationship they were in, would you feel good? Would you feel like they're safe? Would you feel like they're healthy? Would you feel like they're loved and cared for? And if the answer is no, that informs a lot and should direct maybe some strategic next moves to explore. So again, the point of this podcast is never pro-divorce or pro-marriage or stay or go. It's hoping to share stories like Kara's about what it looks like to make that decision and what it feels like to go through it, and ultimately what's available to you when you give yourself the gift of healing and space and clarity to know what is good for you next.
Well said. Yes, absolutely. Thank you for doing this podcast. I'm really grateful that you are offering a variety of perspectives.
I've learned a lot. I didn't really want to do it. Like, who wants to do a podcast about divorce and hard stuff and whatever? But I also feel like I wish I would have had perspectives and resources and alternatives and even just people who I knew I wasn't on my own or going through it, something new for the first time. There were other people that had been there before me. So that's kind of why I'm showing up and inviting my brilliant friends and having them share their experience like you've done so well today. But I am so excited, Kara, that people are going to get to know you better, that they're going to get to enter the beautiful story of Bob and Joy and get to borrow your courage in a more in-depth way with the book coming out. And you have your own podcast. And where are the best ways that people can enjoy more of the beauty and wisdom of Kara Kavensky?
My website, karakavensky.com, at Kara Kavensky on all the social handles, most of the social handles. I have a Substack, and my website, you can sign up to receive information when my book becomes available for pre-sale.
Awesome. And everything will be linked in show notes as well. We'll make it easy for you to connect with Kara. She is a brilliant, brilliant artist with her words, whether they're spoken through the podcast or whether they're written in a book or on a Substack, or lucky enough to sit across from you and share a meal or have a tea. So I just want everybody listening and watching this to get more of you, because I know what a blessing and encourager and source of courage you've been for me in the time that we've known each other. And man, I want people to know you, Kara. You're a good egg. You're a badass doer of all things and a good egg. I mean, what else can I say? All right, Kara, any burning things, any last thoughts that you just want to say it or you're going to regret it kind of thing?
Not that I would regret it, but I always like to encourage people and just surround themselves with positivity and all the things that make them feel good, especially when they're going through something that is challenging. Know that growth happens right outside your comfort zone, and you're going to be a stronger person through this, whichever direction, whatever you're going through.
Hell yeah. Smart and wise words from someone who knows it and has lived it and helps other people do it beautifully. So thank you so much, Kara, for being on the show today. I know you all took copious notes about your learnings from today, and you have some good questions to ask yourself, and you're all going to be looking for Kara's book pre-sale when that becomes available, because I'm not going to shut up about it. So you might as well just get on the list. So do yourself the favor there, follow the Substack and get on the list there for Kara. But if you know, and I know you do, if you know somebody who is at this point, if they can relate to Kara's story, or they're at that inflection point of like, what do I do next? Or do I have the courage to do this? Please, please, please share this episode. It costs you nothing. It helps a lot. It's on every platform you could ever want. So whether they are an iTunes person or a Spotify person or a YouTube watcher, it's all there. So share it. Like, let me know what you think of the episode. Leave a comment. If you have questions for Kara, I'll make sure I get her sage wisdom to share with you. But until next time, friends, stay curious.